So our project studied the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on unemployment. And our members were Pingyao, Stefan, Ryka, Akshitaa, Brian, Frank, Diana, and myself. And our project studied a data set consisting of monthly U.S. unemployment statistics for various age groups from 1948 to 2021. We wanted to explore the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic had on unemployment in the United States. And our hypothesis was that the COVID-19 pandemic had an overall negative effect on the unemployment problem. And now I'm going to pass it off to Stefan, who is going to talk about the research we did comparing unemployment rates for men and women during the pandemic. So, Stefan, do you want to take it away?
All right, so we made a couple of different charts to show how the pandemic affected the unemployment rates of men and women. And we did this because we wanted, as Blake said, we wanted to show how the pandemic affected unemployment rates and we wanted to compare how it affected among different groups of people. So in this example, we use men and women. And we found that overall the pandemic, especially in the beginning of it, had caused a huge increase in unemployment.
Okay, and here's our graph for that section. Thank you, Stefan. Next, I'm going to pass it off to Pingyao, who's going to talk about the unemployment rates for each age group during the pandemic. So, Pingyao, do you want to take it away?
So for each age group, we found the maximum by finding while creating a chart using the describe function. And then we graphed the maximum value by pulling it out of that chart. And then if you look at the graph, the higher values have yellow and orange colors, while the lower values are darker. And from the chart, we can identify that teens, which were a group from 16 to 17 and 18 to 19-year-olds, had the highest unemployment rate during the pandemic. And the 18 to 19-year-olds were unemployed at a slightly higher rate, but overall, the teens were the most unemployed.
Okay, thank you, Pingyao. Next, I'm going to pass it off to Akshitaa, who's going to talk about the pie chart we created that showed unemployment during COVID times. So, Akshitaa, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, so we generated a pie chart to show the unemployment rates during the different months of 2020 and 2021. And the purpose was to show the immediate impact the pandemic had on the economy. For instance, during the first few months after March 2020, as you can see, the unemployment rates were the highest. And even though unemployment rates still remained in 2021, they gradually decreased.
All right, thank you, Akshitaa. Next, we're going to have Ryka talk about unemployment rates for teens before and during the pandemic. Ryka, do you want to take it away?
Yeah. So we generated two bar charts to show the unemployment rates of teens before and during the pandemic. We wanted to show how the pandemic affected working teens from ages 16 through 19 and compare the before and after during effect of the pandemic on their unemployment rates. We found out that teens ages 16 through 19 were mostly unemployed before COVID. We found out that the highest unemployment rate for teens peaked during April 2020.
Great, awesome. And finally, we're going to pass it off to Brian, who's going to talk about unemployment rates for younger and middle-aged people during the pandemic. So, Brian, do you want to take it from here?
So for the unemployment rates for younger people and middle-aged people during the pandemic, we generated a bar graph for both ones, and then we wanted to see how the pandemic affected these age groups, as that's the age where most people get actual jobs and careers. And we found that right as the pandemic hit, there was a sudden and very sharp spike in unemployment. But as time went on, the rates gradually fell back down to normal at around 3.5%, which took around 19 months.
All right, here's the chart we generated for these two results. And finally, maybe we can have another of our members, Frank, read our conclusion for us. Okay.
Overall, our hypothesis was supported by our data, and then we found that the onset of the pandemic had an overall negative effect on the unemployment issue in the United States. Overall, the pandemic led to a large increase in unemployment rates, particularly in the early stages of the pandemic. Specifically, unemployment rates for teenagers had an overall spike in April 2020 at 31.7% and has steadily declined since the pandemic.
All right. Thank you, Frank. And thank you to the 1 week day science students. Very proud that we could pull this off in a week. Very impressed. And thank you to everyone for allowing us to present our project and having us. And we'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Just leave them in the Zoom chat and we'll try to answer them.